Welcome back to the channel. If you've been playing the new farming sim called Cornucopia, then you'll hopefully like this video because there's a lot of things in-game that are either hidden mechanics or not really explained too well. I'm going to be covering these things among other beginner tips and tricks, so you'll want to follow along closely so you don't miss anything. On the topic of missing things, you'll want to make sure that you're subscribed to my channel as well so you don't miss out on any of this great farming sim content. Starting out, the first thing that I found helpful that I had no idea about when I first started was the smart targeting, which actually allows you to target the closest resource that you're trying to harvest without actually pressing directly on it. To do this, all you do is hold the Alt key and just press your mouse button to use your tool. It's important to note that this won't switch tools for you, so if you're not standing near any rock nodes and you have your pickaxe and use the smart targeting, nothing will happen. The next tip is that you can actually see your current heart level with an NPC while speaking to them. This obviously can also be found in your menu as well. As in most farming sims, the higher the heart level, the better rewards you'll get from the NPC. You're able to unlock different recipes from leveling up your heart levels along with entering an NPC's bedroom. And even at a high enough heart level, you're actually able to decorate the NPC's bedroom, which is a pretty fun idea. Now the next tip is also related to NPCs, but pay attention when talking to NPCs and don't just spam through conversation for that small relationship boost each day. Sometimes the NPCs will actually give you tips on what their favorite giftable items are. Now something that I didn't realize that was a quality of life item was the fact that you can actually adjust the level of tilt and zoom in your game. How your game starts is fine, but personally I like to be a bit more zoomed out and tilted so you can see more of the screen at once. You can actually put water in Munger's bowl along with dog food. Just have your respective watering can or dog food in hand and interact with his bowls. I'll admit that I had no idea about using the watering can for adding water to his bowl and only really knew about adding dog food to his bowl. Now it's important to do these things daily for a little bump in that friendship level with Munger. Now this one is very different from most farming sims and honestly is a huge blessing, but there is actually no passing out nor a penalty for staying out too late. Now there's still the typical day and night cycle though. Just at 3 a.m. it'll shift to the next day with the prompt about the world growing, but no passing out or losing stamina. That said though, sleeping is still extremely important in case you want to recover health and stamina, so definitely don't neglect your bed. Now this next tip is probably my favorite tip because it's such a cool hidden mechanic. It's one that you'll likely have no idea about, but pay attention when you're mining stones because there are some hidden icons that only show up when you hit the exact perfect spot. Once you find the hidden icon, keep hitting that exact spot with your pickaxe to extract that material, then you can continue breaking the rock. Like most farming sims, make sure to brush and feed your animals each day for a boost in friendship. And if you want to purchase more animals, you can actually head over to the animal auction house to do so. Now on the topic of pets, when your pet is following you around town or in the mines, you can actually right click to command them to go interact with something, whether that be cutting down a tree or fighting an enemy. Now pay attention though because your pet also has a health and stamina bar like you that can be depleted. Now let's talk about growing crops. Growing crops in Cornucopia is probably the most complex growing mechanic in any farming sim that I've ever played and realistically kind of deserves its own video, but basically the general gist for now is that the better the soil, the larger the crop will be. So you mainly have to meet two main conditions to maximize the size of your crop: the soil type and the soil conditions, which gives you the best chance to have larger crops. Soil type can either be sand, clay, or loam soil, and the soil conditions are noted by numbers next to nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. It may seem complex, but it really isn't as bad as it seems. If your seed prefers clay, then if you plant in clay soil, then it'll increase the chances of producing a larger crop. If you make sure that the fertilizer conditions are met, then it'll also increase the chances to produce a larger crop. Now, a separate tip, but also somewhat related to crops, you absolutely should be using your composter constantly to make fertilizer because that's the only way to improve your soil conditions. You can even get some rare fertilizers that'll boost the soil levels by pretty significant margins, and some crops require high soil numbers. Before heading to the mines, I like to make sure that all my tools' special attacks are charged up and ready because combat works a little different in game rather than in most farming sims where you don't have a specific weapon to fight enemies. You actually use your tools so you can pre-charge them up to dish out some serious damage prior to entering the mines. Don't be afraid to explore underwater as you're actually able to swim in game. Well, I guess it's more like you're sinking and holding your breath, but you can walk along the bottom to gather resources or visit certain NPCs. And if you're like me, the first couple days you'll probably be tempted to meet everyone in town to find your future wife or husband, but luckily for us, the first festival in spring is early on day 5, and it's called the Spring Planting Festival, and it's a great way to meet just about everyone at the same place and at the same time. Now talking about fishing is pretty simple in terms of difficulty, but it's really not explained, so I'll try to explain it very briefly. Currently at this point in early access, it doesn't matter where you fish in terms of oceans versus rivers, but what does change your fish options are size and type of bait. The devs have already mentioned to expect more changes in the future with adding seasons, weather, etc., So fishing will get a little bit more complex in that regard. The general concept of the fishing game itself is to drop balls from the top and have them land in the bottom where you prefer to catch that fish. Whatever has the most balls in the bottom when you run out is whatever fish you catch. If there's a tie, it's based on RNG. A really important feature in this farming sim is utilizing scratch-off tickets for rewards. So don't forget that after opening card packs, you also have to then go into your scratch-off tickets to physically scratch them off. Now, if you lose your pet, then you're actually able to use a whistle to call them back to you. You get 3 in the mail at the start, but you're actually able to buy more later. Now, when you were scratching off some of your other cards, you probably noticed that they are actually scratch-off cards that are noted as quests. You can actually equip these and get a rather large completion reward for pretty easy tasks, such as using your hoe 5 times or talking to a specific NPC. Each NPC's favorite gifted item actually changes for each playthrough. So what may be someone's favorite item in one gameplay may actually be totally different in another's. You'll have to find out what they prefer by getting to know them a little bit better. Now, last but certainly not least, it's important to explore Cornucopia and enter every building, as you actually get free cards from going into new buildings for the first time. Along with cards, you can actually find chests along with other homes that you can buy to live in. And I hope these tips were helpful to get you started in Cornucopia. If there's any tips that you would add, or if you have any questions, please drop them in the comment section below. And as always, I'll see you next time, YouTube. Peace out.